The Houston Safari Club Foundation Worldwide Hunting Expo and Convention at the George R. Brown Convention Center, February 4th through the 6th, 2022. Hunting and fishing outfitters from around the world. Gear, firearms, optics, taxidermy, and more. Banquets, auctions, raffles, and entertainment. $10 at the door. Children 12 and under and active military with ID get in free. Proceeds support youth education, scholarships, conservation, and hunters' rights. Sponsored by Gunworks, Forloh, Capital Farm Credit, Wildlife Partners, and Boyd's Hardwood Gunstocks. Go to WeHuntWeGive.org to learn more.
Tradition, conservation, family, the outdoors. It matters to you. It matters to us. This is Hunting Matters, presented by Houston Safari Club Foundation. Here's Joe Betar.
Good morning. Welcome back to Hunting Matters on KPRC 950. I'm your host, Joe Betar.
I am Ramon Robles.
And we are back at it again, Ramon.
It's early.
Yeah, it's too early. You got any mischief planned for the weekend?
No, just to survive the heat, really. Stay indoors.
And hopefully we don't get any tropical storms.
Keep my AC at 82. Is that what ERCOT suggested?
That ain't happening in my house.
Can you believe that?
No.
I mean, it's one thing to say keep your AC, up a little bit, but to say 82?
Yeah, 82 is tough, man. I mean, I'll do 80. I'll do 78, maybe.
I do 76 when we're not at the house.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you have young children, though.
Yeah.
We got dogs, and it's just me and the wife at home now. So
okay, so I guess you're more cold-natured since you're older.
I am. That's the problem. Okay. I didn't want to say that, but thank you for pointing that out. I appreciate it.
Because you're so old.
I am old.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Hey, speaking of being hot, you ever had the meat sweats?
Oh, yeah.
So I got a bad case of the meat sweats last weekend because I decided it was hot outside. It was a pretty nice day. I'm like, man, I could use a big ribeye. So I smoked some ribeyes for about 30 minutes and then threw them on the sear grill and seared them up. And I made baked potatoes and I smoked fresh corn, baked beefsteak tomatoes with blue cheese dressing and crumbles on them. And about 20 minutes after we finished eating on Sunday night, I looked at my wife. She goes, "You okay?" I said, "Yeah, I think so. Why?" She goes, "You're sweating." I said, "Uh-oh."
Yeah.
Meat sweats.
Yep.
Haven't had those in a long time.
Good for you.
It was worth it.
Yeah.
I love a good ribeye. What's happening? Hey, let's start with a fun fact.
Okay.
What's the most common taxidermied animal in the United States?
I'm going to say deer.
Nope.
Ooh.
Not even close.
Wow. Okay.
Think of the other end of the spectrum.
Bear?
Snow goose.
Oh.
The snow goose is the most taxidermied animal.
I would never have guessed
that. As far as quantity of animals done.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense now.
Yeah, a lot of birds.
Do you have a snow goose taxidermy?
Nope.
Do you have any kind of taxidermied animal?
Yeah, I've got lots of most of mine's big game.
Oh, okay.
Most of mine's big game. My wife's favorite is my buffalo, and she likes the New Zealand stuff.
Is it a buffalo or a bison?
This one's, I'm going to say it's a bison.
Okay.
I mean, I think there's only one purebred herd in the United States now,
or
in North America. But
probably can't shoot those.
Don't quote me on that. But it's probably a buffalo, actually. But she likes it. Looks cool. Reminds her of the Old West. And since I'm an old guy,
Annie Oakley over there.
Yep. What's happening? Houston Safari Club Foundation. Our young professionals group, the Stag and Dove Society, had an archery event this week that was well attended. We've got it's still counting on you to show up for this one. We've got a dove field on the opening day of dove season coming up in September. We're planning a long-range shooting event with Gunworks. And I know what's going to get you there, not the guns, but Garrison Brothers coming out. Dan Garrison's coming out.
You got to lead with that.
And they happen to spill the beans on the fact that they're going to probably have a few bottles of cowboy bourbon available. Yep.
Yeah.
So they're bringing that. And then Lucho Cigars is coming out. So it's going to be cool firearms, bourbon, and cigars out at the American Shooting Centers here in Houston, Texas. Our annual Sporting Clays tournament's coming up in October, and that is to raise funds for our youth programs and our scholarship programs. And there's going to be a lot of other cool stuff, more announcements to come. So anyway, I digress. With us this week is a guy I've known for quite a while in the outdoor industry through various capacities. This is Gray Thornton. Gray is the president and the CEO of the Wild Sheep Foundation. Gray, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Joe, Ramon, good to be on the program. And I got to tell you, I'm sitting here in Montana.
Uh-huh.
I'm listening to you talk about good old Texas grilling.
Yep.
and meat sweats, and I'm getting hungry. And then I'm now listening about, three of my favorite things: alcohol, tobacco, and firearms.
Right.
I mean, what more could be better? So I'm just glad to be on the program. Well, good morning to y'all.
I appreciate you being here. So you just go ahead and book your ticket for September. I know you've got some business in Texas probably coming up at that time, and we'll partake of all three.
It sounds like a heck of a good time. I may take you up on that. I'm a proud Houston Safari Club member, so I should attend.
Cool. That'd be fun, man. It'd be good to see you again. I know we've played phone tag and email tag and stuff, and with the pandemic lockdown, we hadn't got to see each other over the past year and a half as usual. So it's good. It's good to connect with you on the program.
Yeah, you bet. Glad to be here.
So great. We're going to talk about your organization and all the great things you guys do, but I'm going to go back a ways. You weren't always involved in the outdoor world. What did you do before you got into your dream roles?
Interesting, Joe. I don't come from a hunting family, and I've always tried to figure out how the heck did I get this passion. And I guess the story is, as a young kid, I just had this interest in the outdoors. I started fishing, early on, and shoot, I picked up my first fly rod at age 9. And I think it came from reading Outdoor Life, Field and Stream, Sports Afield. I read them cover to cover, mowed lawns, like all kids back then. We washed cars, we mowed lawns, we picked weeds, we moved rocks, we did whatever we could to make a little cash to, buy a bicycle or in this case, I was buying fishing gear, but I was reading about my heroes. And for whatever reason, I got this bug to go hunting. Well, I couldn't do it. I didn't have anyone to take me. And so it wasn't until after I graduated from college. And I went to school, got a business degree at Fresno State University, and then went to work for Xerox. And one of my Xerox clients was a hunter and a shooter, and I'd bought guns. I had a 30-30, I had a 357, 22. So I had firearms and I was shooting, but I hadn't really hunted yet. I think I'd gone on one pheasant hunt on a kind of a put and take pheasant deal out in Central California with a college buddy. But it was actually a hunting mentor, and a guy named Daryl Amble. And he was a banker at American National Bank in Bakersfield, California, and he had just kind of dropped a hint while we were chatting about some hunt he was going on. It turns out he annually went up to Wyoming and did a pronghorn hunt. And I was bold, and I liked the guy. I had sold him a couple of pieces of equipment, and I said, can I take you to lunch? And I tell you what, Joe and Ramon, I can remember the Red Robin in Bakersfield, took Daryl to lunch, bought him a burger, and a Coke. And I said, would you teach me to hunt? And he did. So, it was a kind of a crazy story. He and I have remained close, but I was just so blessed to have a guy that had such a strong ethical background too, and safety background. He taught me firearm safety, taught me how to reload, taught me hunting ethics. We later all became firearm safety instructors, then hunter safety instructors. So I kind of went all in on it. And lo and behold, after Xerox and Unisys, got a job at Safari Club International.
Cool. All right, folks. Well, that is the way to get into it. Thank goodness for mentors out there in the hunting world. We're going to take a quick break. We're talking to Gray Thornton, the president and CEO of the Wild Sheep Foundation. We'll be right back on Hunting Matters, KPRC 950.
Have you heard about the Houston Safari Club Foundation? They're a nonprofit organization that provides annual scholarships to college students, hunting and fishing trips, and outdoor education programs for hundreds of students each year. And they fund conservation projects at home and abroad to protect habitat and wildlife. A community of hunters and people passionate about the outdoors. Monthly events, an annual convention, member benefits, and so much more. Whether you hunt quail in South Texas or big game around the world, this is the place for you. Become a member today. Go to WeHuntWeGive.org to learn more. WeHuntWeGive.org.
Good morning. Welcome back to Hunting Matters on KPRC 950. I'm your host, Joe Vitar.
I am Ramon Robles.
You know the cool thing about that song? Whenever our guest walks into the room, walks into the office, that this song kicks on and plays.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he's got a guy walking behind him with a boombox.
Oh, cool.
Wouldn't it be cool to have your own walk-in theme music?
Yeah.
Be cool.
We got to start that tradition. That'd be cool.
I got to figure out what mine's going to be. I know what yours is going to be. We'll talk about that later. Folks, joining us today is Gray Thornton. Gray is the president and CEO of the Wild Sheep Foundation. You can go learn all about them at wildsheepfoundation.org. Gray, thanks so much again for joining us.
Great to be with you.
So I don't know if you heard our banter on that. Is it true that when you walk in a room that music begins to play?
I was listening to it, but Joe, I am aware that you've got walk-in music, and it's the Who's Eminence Front.
Oh.
So I think Ramon on the next break is going to grab that Eminent Front, and that lead-in is a Dr. Vitar lead-in for sure.
He called you Dr. Vitar.
Hey, now we're starting rumors. This is a bad rumors get started.
People are like, I didn't know he was did you know he was a doctor?
Gray and Joe have walk-in music everywhere they go, and Vitar's got a PhD in I don't know what, macaroni and cheeseology. Probably.
Cardiology.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Where's Joe today? He's doing a little open heart. He'll be back in a little while.
I actually have a funny one. One of the first Wild Sheep Foundation shows that I was putting on, and my background goes with 18 years in the Safari Club International first, and Dallas Safari Club, and then in 2008 with Wild Sheep Foundation. I think it was the 2010 Wild Sheep Foundation Sheep Show opening night in Reno, Nevada, and I did grab Eminent Front as a walk-on stage deal, and that kind of pumps you up, and Joe, you know how it is when you're about ready. You got 1,000 people in a room, you're about ready to walk up on stage. You want to be pumped up and geared up, and I didn't get backstage in time, and so they started the walk-on music, and it was pumping, Eminent Front. Man, I'm just getting geared up. And this old FNAWS guy, Wild Sheep Foundation guy, looks at me and starts screaming, "This is too loud!"
Oh no!
Yeah, what a buzzkill.
Take needle and insert into the balloon right here.
Right. So. But anyway, good to be on your program, and happy to be able to talk Wild Sheep Foundation.
Cool. All right, let's talk wild sheep. So for those of our listeners, I can't imagine who it would be, but we have a lot of new listeners. What is the Wild Sheep Foundation?
Wild sheep are interesting, and when we're talking wild sheep, we're talking, in North America, bighorn sheep and thinhorn sheep. The bighorn sheep are, we'll keep it simple: Rocky Mountain bighorn, desert bighorn. The thinhorn are Dall sheep and stone sheep. There's some variants and some splitters and various subspecies off of them, but those are basically the four species we talk about. What's unique about wild sheep, and let's focus a little bit on bighorn sheep in North America, Canada, U.S., and Mexico, is unlike white-tailed deer, unlike mule deer. Mule deer are having challenges, but look at white-tailed deer, elk, turkey. So many of the what we in our industry, Joe, love to call the unendangered species that have had enormous comebacks since their lows in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Wild sheep weren't so lucky. When Lewis and Clark made their way west, 1802, 1803, 1804, there is an estimate of maybe 2 million bighorn sheep on the North American continent. Was it 2 million? We don't know. It was a damn lot of them. So let's say there was 1 million and split the estimate. Well, sadly, by the late 1960s, early 1970s, we'd reduced those numbers to 25,000. So, 1 to 2 million to 25,000. As with other species, we love to eat them. And as we as a country were moving west, we shot the heck out of them to feed our families, to feed our expeditions. But they're also, crazy enough, bighorn sheep and thinhorn are highly susceptible to diseases from domestic stock, in this case, domestic sheep and goats. So when as we were populating the West, we brought in millions of domestic sheep and goats, but primarily domestic sheep, into the bighorn range. It caused all-age die-offs. We can get into the disease side, but the bottom line is you mix bighorns and domestic, bighorns die. So what was different from elk and mule deer and whitetail and turkey and ducks, wild sheep don't pay their way. So at that low number of 25,000 in the early 1970s, there wasn't enough license and tag revenue because of there's so few opportunities to hunt sheep to pay agencies to make them a top of mind resource. So lo and behold, organizations built up. The first was an organization in Las Vegas called the Fraternity of the Desert Bighorn. There was Rocky Mountain Bighorn Society, and then an organization in the early, mid-1970s called the Foundation for North American Wild Sheep. And the idea then was we were going to raise money, direct it to the agencies, and make bighorn sheep and wild sheep a priority for these agencies. And money talks. We all know that.
Right.
So the amazing thing is since the Sheep Foundation's incorporation in 1977 and those lows of 25,000, we now have 90,000 bighorn sheep, desert and Rockies in Canada, Mexico, and the USA. So a threefold increase, a great start. Now there's challenges to reach, and probably never would even come close to 1 million.
Sure.
But that was the cause, and as we know, it's the hunter conservationists that had the interest, had the desire to raise the money, to put it into the agencies, to trap and transplant bighorns all throughout the West and increase those numbers.
Yeah, and it kind of prompts me. We got about a minute here before we go into the next break, Gray. But I know you've been part of it. But how, for lack of a better term, how bristly is that relationship between conservationists trying to bring this great and mighty species back and the domestic sheep farmer?
Great question, and it has bristles, but I'm so pleased to say that what we're now doing is not fighting over the science, but working together to come to solutions. So it's been pretty bad in the past. There will be rocky roads in the future, but in Montana, where I am, we partnered with Montana wool growers and our Montana chapter, Wild Sheep Foundation, Cabela's Outdoor, our Cabela's Family Fund, and Cabela's Outdoor Foundation, Bass Pro Shops, and worked together with our agency to trap and transplant and start 2 new herds in Montana just within the last 6 months. And that hasn't happened in nearly 20 years. The only reason it happened is because the wild sheep interest and the domestic sheep interest got together and said, let's quit bitching about things. Let's work together. So great question, Joe, and we're starting to see some great cooperation with the domestic sheep industry, and we will honestly can see a lot more in the future.
Right. Well, that's very, very encouraging to hear. Folks, we're talking to Gray Thornton, the president and the CEO of the Wild Sheep Foundation. This is an organization that puts their money where their mouth is, giving millions of dollars back to Habitat and the resurgence of the wild sheep population in North America. We're going to take a quick break here on Hunting Matters on KPRC 950. We'll join you on the other side. Good morning. Welcome back to Hunting Matters on KPRC 950. Thanks for playing my walk-in music, Ramon.
You're standing taller now.
What do you think about the outfit? Are the wrestling tights too much?
I think it's a bit much. I'm more disturbed with the garter belt.
Well, and the fact I'm wearing it as a headband. Oh, man. Folks, we're joined today by Gray Thornton. Gray is the president and the CEO of the Wild Sheep Foundation. You can learn about all about Wild Sheep Foundation and Wild Sheep and all the great works that they do at wildsheepfoundation.org. Gray, thanks so much again for joining us.
And I'm loving your walk-in music, man. That is just, it is so you, Joe.
Now we got to come up with one for Ramon now.
No, I'm good.
Don't worry,
right.
It's coming. Absolutely. Gray, we were talking a little bit about the resurgence of the sheep population, and I'm going to I'm not blowing smoke, but I'm going to largely say it's because of the work of the Wild Sheep Foundation, having a dedicated focus and people and raising money and raising funds. Because like you said before in the last segment, money talks. And the really cool thing about your organization is, we all have to get members, we all have to raise money, we have to all put on banquets and do all these things. But the cool thing is about your organization and some of the other conservation organizations out there is that you guys are a boots on the ground organization. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, you bet. And when you look at the Wild Sheep Foundation, I like to expand it and say the Wild Sheep family, because we do have autonomous chapters and affiliates that are all under that umbrella. I call it one tent and one campfire. We've basically every state and province and territory in the West that have sheep have some sort of a local, regional, or territorial organization that is a sheep group and works with us. And what's exciting is, where, we as the Mama Bear, Papa Bear is the National Wild Sheep Foundation. We're here based in Bozeman, Montana, where we can do boots on the ground projects and do, just we were mentioning these two transplants in Montana. But what's really cool is our chapters, and they can be sheep hunters, they can be non-sheep hunters, they can be non-hunters. They come together and they build water projects. They'll do habitat enhancement. We all have boots on the ground in Washington, D.C. and capitals around the West advocating for wild sheep restoration. But then fund, the sexy stuff, trapping a sheep either out of a helicopter, doing some vet work on it, putting it on a collar, and then translocating it to other location to repatriate sheep into once used habitat. That's what we all love to do and get behind. But our chapters and affiliates, like all of our industry, are the men and women that are out there raising money, time, talent, and treasure, and putting it to use. In our case, for our purpose, to put and keep wild sheep on the mountain. It's interesting about the Sheep Foundation. We're a relatively small organization. We've doubled our membership in the last 6-7 years. We're 10,000 members right now. And what I like to say is, we've got a small footprint, but we cast a very large conservation shadow. Wild Sheep Foundation is unique. Part of the reason is of the species that we're dealing with. It's such an iconic species, wild sheep, and we have such a passionate and such an altruistic membership. It blows my mind. Joe, Ramon, Wild Sheep Foundation the past 3 years have put $6 million a year into mission programs wow. benefiting wild sheep and those that hunt them. In the past 7 years, $36+ million towards mission programs. So again, a relatively small membership, but we raise unbelievable amounts of money and drive it right into the wild sheep resource. So it's an amazing group. Lot of carryover. I mean, our members are also Houston Safari Club members. Our members are Rocky Mountain, Elk Foundation members. Our members are SCI members. Our members are Dallas Safari Club members. We all support our passion But there's one thing that really brings that wild sheep group together and our wild sheep family together, and that is this almost addictive focus. We call it sheep fever on this particular resource. So we're blessed. We've got a membership that loves to spend money on putting and keeping sheep on the mountain.
Yeah, and look, let's face it. Sheep hunting is physically challenging. Sheep hunting is not inexpensive, and rightly so. I mean, this is like you said before. It's not the abundance of whitetail deer like you have in Texas and other states. But if you had to describe, I mean, sheep hunters are a different breed. So if you had to describe a sheep hunter in one word, what would that be?
Nuts.
That's one word.
I've got a big. It's a mural on my wall in my office, and it's a quote from Jack O'Connor, and it is "Sheep hunters are romantics," and that. I said nuts, but it is passion. It is romanticism. For the high mountains, the high places that these incredible species exist, and it's been said that on your first sheep hunt, you're either gonna never do it again or you're gonna do everything in the world to do it again. So you either are or you aren't, and you figure it out pretty quick. So. I love it. I wish I could do more of it. You're right. It's expensive. And the funny thing about sheep hunting, it's also luck. In the state and provincial draws, you just have to be lucky. And so we've got all sorts of crazy things we say. It's the sheep hunter is typically a older guy or gal because they have the money to do it. But then there's that aspirational sheep hunter, the young man and woman that has the legs and the lungs. They just don't have the pocketbook. So, that guy or gal needs the luck, and we certainly encourage it. We've got a program we call the Less Than One Club, which means you have less than one sheep. And the deal there, it's the only club you join you wish you get kicked out of. And what we do is we put people in that club, give away sheep hunts, and send a young guy or gal on their first sheep hunt.
Wow. Yeah, I think I've always admired that program. I think it's a brilliant marketing approach, and it's very unique in that like you said, it's definitely a club you want to get kicked out of pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So what we talked about some of the successes and some of the things that have happened with wild sheep. What's the big challenge ahead of you on the forefront for this species?
Safe places to put sheep. It's very interesting. We talked a little bit about the disease challenge. If the more research we do, and Wild Sheep Foundation has an endowed chair at Washington State University for disease research. We've pumped millions of dollars into studying the bugs on why, what is the problem? Where here you've got this animal that can handle some of the harshest climates, harshest terrains in the world, but is so susceptible to respiratory disease. So that still is the biggest challenge. There's problem with predation. There's problem with energy development, and hey, I drive a truck and I love gas and I love the internal combustion engine, but there are challenges with energy development in the northern territories because of roads. And what does that provide? Access. And access can ATVs and other folks just making it a little easier to get into sheep country, which just puts more pressure on the sheep. So crazy. I've got a biologist that works for me, Kevin Hurley's 35 years with Wyoming Game and Fish. Now he's our vice president of conservation, knows sheep like no other. And he's got a funny saying. He says, crazy thing about bighorns, they're born looking for a place to die. So, our challenge is taking that resource and trying to find a safe place where we can build new populations that's not in proximity to domestic sheep and goats. What's interesting is that we're now starting to look at risk, tolerance and risk aversion, And we look at states like Nevada. Nevada in the late 1960s, 1970s had a remnant population of bighorn sheep, less than 1,000. Nevada today has more bighorn sheep than any other state in the union at about 11,000. And what they did was take risks. They said, you know what, we're going to put sheep in some areas. They may wink out. We're going to accept it, and we're not going to hold the domestic sheep industry blame for it. So,
Caesar's Palace as well.
Yeah, we're just going to have to get credit.
Yeah,
have to get creative.
Man, I love hearing those success stories. All right, folks, we're here today with Gray Thornton. Gray is the president and CEO of the Wild Sheep Foundation. We'll be right back with our guest on Hunting Matters on KPRC 950. Good morning. Welcome back to Hunting Matters on KPRC 950. I'm your host, Joe Bitar.
Hi, I'm Ramon Robles.
And we are joined today by Gray Thornton. Gray is the president and CEO of the Wild Sheep Foundation. Gray, you still with us?
I'm still with you. Great morning to be with you.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man. So it looks like we're getting through the other side of this pandemic. Let's talk a little bit about the challenges of the hunter and the outdoorsman, the fisherman, and how we charge through this mess. I'd like to get your take on that.
You know, a great question, Joe. And if you look back at when we were wondering what the heck was going on, and we looked at that 15 days to flatten the curve, and you and I were chatting, and some of our industry partners were chatting, and we had no idea what the future would hold. We certainly hoped we could do what we do, and that is get together, have our big annual conventions, and raise money for the programs that we support. And I tell you what I'm encouraged about, and it, we certainly have a lot of challenges in this country, too numerous to speak on. But I'll tell you one thing. The thing I'm optimistic about is the industry that we're in. The hunters, the anglers, the conservationists that give all to whether it's a critter group, whether it's a hunter advocacy group, whether it's a firearms advocacy group. I mean, we put our money where our mouth is, and it showed again during the pandemic. I know Houston Safari Club did an exceptional job dealing with the pandemic and still raising money. Dallas Safari Club did. Sheep Foundation was interesting. We pivoted early because what we knew is that if something was going to take a hit, it would be other parts of our budget than what we do for the wild sheep resource. We didn't want that sheep resource to take a hit. We didn't want the outfitters and guides to take as much as a hit as they were. But we pivoted early with Wild Sheep Foundation. We started thinking about a kind of a fully immersive virtual, and I hate the term now, but
right.
Show way back in July, and then started making decisions. And the results is like pretty much everyone, and that is that our memberships, our collective memberships, came to the table, came to the party, and spent money. And I don't know, Joe, what the numbers were for Houston Safari Club, but amazing. We ended up at just about 85% revenue of our record 2020 event, and that's being down $1.8 million in revenue. Yeah. From where we would have been, but we were also $1.5 million in expense. So, it's really interesting. So we were able to actually increase funding for the resource. A big part of our convention is selling those special tags and permits for state, provincial, and tribal agencies. We had 9 new records. We had the highest number of dollars that we're going to be, that we're directing to agencies in our history. We signed up 1,700 new members between October and our convention, 1,200 on a checkoff box on our on our online registration. So, it just, and that's not unique. I mean, I think every organization has some incredible success stories. And, what does that give me? It gives me optimism, despite the challenges we face, despite the political challenges we face, despite some of the BS that's happening in our country right now. I think we have things to be optimistic for. So I'm encouraged for the future. I'm encouraged for Houston Safari Club, Dallas Safari Club, SCI, Wild Sheep, RMEF, turkey, ducks, all of our industry. I think we're gonna pull through this. We have pulled through this. And we've learned a hell of a lot. I know there's things that we're going to do in the future that we learned because of the challenges of this pandemic. Our big task, and what I challenged my staff way back in April of last year, was to rethink and retool our business, and we have. So, what do they say? What doesn't kill you, makes you stronger. Well, I think we as an industry have learned a lot, stood proud together, and arm in arm, working for, whether it's, the professional hunters and outfitters in Africa, whether it's the guide outfitters in North America, or the resource, critters that we like to support. We were there for them, and I think we can hold our head high.
Yeah, I agree. These people who love the outdoors stood up in a big way, and even the cherry on top of the sundae, icing on the cake, whatever you want to say, was the number of people that decided to go buy a hunting and fishing license that were not in that population that stepped out and said, "Look, I can't sit in this house or this apartment any longer. I got to get outdoors and go places and do stuff." And so that was equally as encouraging in my viewpoint.
You're absolutely right.
So let's switch gears. Right. We're going to wrap up here in a few minutes. I want to switch gears now. There's a little rumor or secret that you have a love affair with motorcycles.
Ooh, that I do.
Yeah, you want to tell us about that?
I do. Well, it's like all things that, maybe it's a challenge, and it had to do with something with a divorce many years ago. And what do guys do when they get divorced? They buy either a sports car or a motorcycle. I got into motorcycles late in life, but found that I enjoyed them, started running around on a sport bike, and lo and behold, damn it, I'm in Texas, and I joined the Central Motorcycle Racing Association and became a super bike rider. So, heck, I was doing that in my 40s. We had an endurance team, and we raced a Gixxer 1000 on 4, 5, and 6 hour races in Texas and Oklahoma, and then I do sprint races on Sundays, 8-lap races on my Honda RC51. So yeah, I've got a need for speed. I do love Harleys. I had a Harley for 11 years, and then as I'm knocking on the door of 60 right now, Joe, if you can believe that. But in any event, I now ride a BMW 1200 Adventure. So I can get out a little bit on the dirt, a little bit on the pavement, and do a bit of both. So it's kind of a real fun, long-distance, on-road, off-road touring bike. And I love it. It's kind of my solo adventure.
I know you're kind of a boring guy, Gray, and I say that tongue-in-cheek because I've seen you in action. And it's good. I'm glad you're keeping yourself busy as you age. Oh, man. Yeah, those motorcycle addictions are tough.
Oh, well, the old man in me, I'm thinking, well, what kind of gas mileage you get on those things?
Yeah,
and how many bugs do you eat?
That is good. It's above 40 miles to the gallon, so that's not bad.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, Gray, we've had a great time. We've had a great time with you today, and we're going to wrap up the show with a few lightning round questions, if that's okay with you.
You got it.
All right, man. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
One superpower?
Yep.
I think to fly.
Fly. That's a pretty common. Yeah, pretty common.
Yeah, that way I could get up. As I'm getting older, it's harder to get up those damn mountains.
Wouldn't that be nice, man?
Man.
You could put a whole new twist on sheep hunting if you could fly. I was going to ask you what your spirit animal is, but I'm guessing it's sheep at this point. That's an obvious one. All right,
yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. What's your weapon of choice in a zombie apocalypse?
Ooh. Boy, did I just have to pick one?
Yes, just one.
It would, I'd go a little old school. I'd grab my old HK-91. just kind of, I can remember those HK advertisements in the 80s, in a world of compromise, some men don't. So if you got to go after zombies,
yeah,
I'm going to take my HK91.
One of the greatest taglines of all times. What's the weirdest thing you've ever eaten?
A horse in Mongolia. Oh, not Mongolia, but Kazakhstan.
Did you know it was a horse?
Yeah, and horse in every which way. And I could say it was okay.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, Greg Thornton is joining us today, or has joined us today. He's the president and the CEO of the Wild Sheep Foundation. Greg, thanks once again so much. And folks, go to the website, wildsheepfoundation.org, and check out the great things that this organization does. We're going to be heading out. We'll see you back here on Honey Matters on KPRC 950.